Hey guys, something a little different here today. Just fixing one of these motherboards. Have a few of these here to fix now. This chip is cooked. It's got its signal up to it, but it's for the I/O controller for the Q flash. So I'm going to be pulling this off right now when I turn it on. The power supply here, it's plugged in. Just turn it on. Pulls constant about 6 watts, and there's no reaction to the power button or anything. And it gets really hot. Yeah, very hot. So it should only be pulling a couple watts at idle, and it should at least react to the power button when I short it out. So I'm going to pull this off and see if it will react after that. And I'll leave it like that till I get one of these in to replace it. Looks like it's a common problem with this board. It's a 790 UD, Z790 UD AC Gigabyte. I'll get it off and I'll be back. Hey guys, it's a few minutes later here now, and just popped it off. It's right there. Didn't clean it up too much, but I can see this capacitor is knocked off too now. Shouldn't affect it, so we'll see here what happens now. Clean it up a bit better in a bit. Turn it on. Kilowatt. So it was pulling almost 6 watts before. And that looks a lot better. Shorten the pin out here. Reacted to the switch now. Power supply turned on. That looks good. Turns off too. So that's a good sign. So I'll just wait. I'll clean it up and wait till I get my new one in, and I'll have to replace that cap too. Right there. I'll get you guys on the scope too next time when I put it back together. Hey guys, I've been working on this. Was it the Z790 UD AC? It's a cheap gigabyte board. It had this blown out IC right here. Had a big hole in it. It was burnt. I replaced that. That's for some of the I/O and the Q flash functions on it. And when I put it on the thermal, actually, when I first plugged it in, actually, after I changed that, it's pulling about 7 watts in standby. Now, it's only pulling 0.8, which is normal with this 850 watt power supply, SAMA. So what was wrong on the thermal camera? Turn my tweezers here. Was that chip right here. And it's common on these boards. It's a regulator. It was getting 70 Celsius in the thermal camera, just in standby mode here. And it was the same when I turned the board on. The board was still turning on with the button, power button stuff. Here's the one I removed. So here's the replacement part. So what I do, I see a lot of people doing this, they put capped on tape or some sort of a tape on their boards to use a hot air. That's the worst thing you could do. It's a waste of time. What you need to do is use aluminum foil. It's cheap. All you gotta do is form it. I've never had a spot where I couldn't get it into, and I've never ever burnt any plastic ever, or a cap using this stuff. You can just wrap it up around your spot where you want it. I like to get it into place and then push it in and wrap it around with tweezers. It'll always form to what you want. And like for the caps here, this is all I did. Like that. At your hot air station, blast it with a bunch of heat really quick. Low airflow, high temperature. It's off in like 15 seconds. You're done. And then to put that chip back on, I always just use the soldering iron. Stuff like that, unless it's on a SIO chip. Then use a small nozzle and work the edges. Get a corner started, make sure it's all aligned, and then work your edges while keeping pressure on it with your, preferably underneath a microscope. But anyway, it was pulling like 7 watts in standby before. But now I'll just put you on the thermal camera here for a second and we'll see what it's doing. Okay guys, so it's showing the thermal here now. It's on the sensitive setting. Yeah, turn it on. It's just in standby right now. This is where that chip is right here. Even in standby before it was hitting 60 Celsius. Now it's cold. This layer of resistors, if you ever see them, they're always hot when the board turns on. That's normal. There it's on. See how it's getting warm? And that chip is cooler than what those resistors are. It's in the sensitive mode. I'll put it to the put it like that. And it pulls 20 watts like that, this board. So it seems to be working just fine now. I don't want to pull out my processor yet for a few other things to do. Put this on the burner for a bit, back burner. So I'm going to turn it off and then I'm going to try to do a Q flash with it. And response to the power button. Everything seems normal. There you go. Hey guys, so I've got the BIOS here. This is the latest version, F15 I think it is. I don't know what's on this board. And we'll see if we can just go right to the last version here. Sometimes you have to do an earlier version if there's an old BIOS on these boards. I know with Gigabyte for sure it's like that. So here's the Q flash button. Like I said, this I/O controls the Q flash, and that's what was wrong with this board, along with this chip here. So we're gonna put it on here. I always like to have a USB with a light so you can actually see what it's going, if it's working. You also have the light here on the Q flash if it's working too. It should be blinking. So just put it in here. Turn the power on. And see what happens here. It looks like it's working. Yeah, the light's flashing here. It's pulling 10 watts from the kilowatt meter. And when you making your flash drive, format it to an FAT32, and after you get your file onto the flash drive, rename it to gigabyte.bin. This one should be almost done now. But as long as that's flashing, it's working. If it's solid, then it's not working. That means it was a bad flash. And there we go, it's done. Now the board's pulling 20 watts. Like it does before in standby. That's what this board's been doing. So I'm going to test it out and see what's going on. Okay, I got this here all set up so I can test it with the CPU. This is one of the boards that had a bunch of bent pins right down here. Most of them are ground or not being used. So it shouldn't matter. I can't see it not working with this. By the board view, it looks like none of those pins will matter. There's about 3 or 4 of them there that are bent, but I straightened them as best I could, and there's one, I think there's one that's missing and it's not being used on the board view. So it should run fine without having to mess with those pins anymore. This is 14900K. See, might as well put in 32 gigs of RAM right off the bat here. See, you should have seen already in the video that I did a Q flash on it just to make sure all that Q flash was working, because I'm sorry about that inverter fan, it's just something I can't turn off because I need power in here. So this chip here is what controls the I/O, and back over here, and it's part of the Q flash circuit. And also this one here was fried also. It's a power management chip, some sort of a regulator, I think. So that has also been changed. I'm just going to set the cooler on there with the fans plugged in and put a graphics card in there in the 5th gen slot here, even though it's only a 4th gen card and 4th gen, oh no, it's actually a 3rd gen NVMe. Put these in right in this. Backwards. I have Windows 10 on this one. Just shove it in here. RX 6400 should work fine for this. And big thermal cooler. Finally get to test this board. been here for a while. Took forever to get parts. So that should be it for that. Okay, about to turn the power here on the power supply. It's pulling 1.2 watts. See if I can turn this on with my bad eyes. There we go. Just doing DRAM. VGA. At the CPU, no, VGA, I think. And then it's trying to boot. Yeah, it is booted. And get into the BIOS. See if everything's recognized in the BIOS. There we go. Looks like it's all there, 32 gigs. Went to the latest version of the BIOS with the Q flash, that worked. Both slots are working here. Pretty high voltage for it's actually really high for this. Gigabyte's got it pretty high up there. It's just actually I'm just curious to see what they have these set at. Intel default settings extreme. That's what the F15 BIOS comes with this board. And that's a really recent one too. I can't remember. I don't know if it shows the date here. Doesn't say the date of the BIOS, I don't think. Unless you guys can see it. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be using this board. I wouldn't run it with these settings, that's for sure. I'd lock the cores down at 5100. Well, there the voltage is different now. Maybe it was just kind of stuck there, I don't know. Seems kind of laggy here. If not, no, it seems better. Get over here, let it boot into Windows. Seems fine. Just curious to see what these voltages are here. Not too bad. 57 P-cores. That's pretty decent temperature for PCH. Everything seems to be working fine. Let me just plug one of these USB devices into the So I'm going to use to make sure they're working because that controller is what was controlling this stuff. Yeah, it's on. So that one went in there. Just go through them all here. Looks like they're all, this one's working. Those are all working. I just want to check and see if there's any sort of Wi-Fi here. Yeah, that's all there too. I don't have any antennas on it, but that's working. So that's good. I just want to check one more thing. Here's the USB-C on here. Because I have a feeling that's something that was plugged in here is probably what killed this board. Because that chip had a big hole in it. Well, a big burn mark anyway. Wasn't really a hole yet, but it's definitely fried. I'll just plug a phone in here. See if it recognizes this. Yeah, it's charging. Doesn't say if it's fast charging or not because it's an iPhone. But that works. So everything works. Good anyways. I wonder if I can just see if I can get HDMI just without having to restart it, switching this over. Yeah, it looks like the onboard graphics works too. Kind of screwed it up though, but you can see at the bottom of the screen there. Like I confused Windows by doing that, but it doesn't matter. Get back to the GPU. Didn't like that. But anyway, I'm going to shut it off. Thanks for watching, guys.